But at the same time, when you do get feedback saying, hey, well, why are you making this? You can go buy it. I don't think those people really understand that making something is the point. It might not be the finished product, but actually going through the process of problem solving and figuring out how to make this really cool. That's where the fun is. So yeah, I can go to IKEA and I can buy a dresser, and it'll work great in my bedroom. But then building one, you miss out on that experience.
Hey everybody, I'm Jonathon, maker, inventor, designer, and Autodesker. Welcome to Shop Talk, the podcast series where we catch up with Autodesk users from shop to shop. Today we're talking to Pete Parisi from Pete Squared. He's a creative powerhouse in his own right in the entertainment industry, but in his spare time, he does these amazing projects just because he loves to do it and shares it on social media. We had a great conversation about his background, his creative process, why he's doing what he's doing, and we even got into sci-fi books. It's a good time, so stick with us. Okay, Pete Squared, welcome to the podcast.
Great, Jonathan. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
So yeah, can you tell us how you got into making with digital fabrication? So you've already got these, you have a background in it to some degree, maybe hands-on stuff or whatever. How did you get into the CAD side of it and CNC and 3D printing and all that?
So I've been using Autodesk products since like 3D Studio Max R1, really, and I've been a 3D modeler in the video games industry for a really long time. And then when I started making stuff, I started using 3D Studio Max and trying to get accurate measurements and trying to figure out what plugins and things. Going from like Maya or 3D Studio Max to Fusion was really easy. At the same time, it's a very, very different type of workflow. I'm still, building something in Max where you're starting out with a cube or you're starting with polygons is very different than starting.
Do you remember the moment where you realized that parametric modeling is fundamentally different from what you do in Max or Maya? Like how different it is from pushing, pulling vertices and that kind of thing?
Yeah, going through some of the tutorials and seeing what's available and how to do that was just mind-blowing because a lot of times you have the same kind of tools in Max or Maya for doing arrays or patterning things out, but then actually having those parameters that you can go into and tweak and what's possible there was so enjoyable to learn about, right? It just really sped things up. So I've been digging a lot deeper into that lately, especially with the keypad project, figuring out how to lay things out correctly so that they can be parametric and affect all of the different parts that throughout the different design. It's great. I really like it.
It is something I've seen a lot, and I think could say this is true for myself, is that when people start making with real materials, right? Whether that's, plywood or some kind of, any kind of plastic material. But plywood especially, I think for me, that was the moment where I realized, oh, you really need to set up parameters and be able to change them after the fact and have everything just kind of percolate out from there. Because you get one batch of plywood that's 1/4 inch, and you get another batch of plywood and it's off by a 32nd. And then the next thing you know, you can't even fit your pieces together.
Yeah, you're right. Going through it from one vendor who's selling Baltic birch plywood to other plywood that's a little bit different, can throw your whole design. All your dados are off. Everything's not fitting correctly or as accurately. You really need to understand your material thickness and how that can fit into a program.
Tell us a little bit about your day job. You said you were doing 3D modeling for games before. I understand you're a producer now. So could you tell us what is that like? What do you do day to day? And then maybe how it dovetails into the work you're doing with making real things.
So my career in general has been really weird. So right now I am a senior producer at Netflix in their video game department. Before that, I spent many years with autonomous driving, leading large teams at Apple and other companies to produce content to train AI. So we call it synthetic data for training AI. And my team at Apple was building huge road networks, pulling in data from Apple Maps, then procedurally generating parts of Sunnyvale or parts of Palo Alto that both simulator and vehicles could drive through. And then before that, I worked on games like Temple Run on mobile, and spent about 10 years at Microsoft working on the Age of Empires franchise and Age of Mythology franchise, and also Halo Wars.
You've clearly got a solid career, right? You've got some nice accolades in, and from jobs you've done in the past. You've got a good job now. You're a producer at Netflix doing some really cool work, right? Um, why all the effort into this stuff you're doing on social media and all these cool projects you're doing? I mean, it looks like a full-time job from the outside looking in. I don't want to make assumptions about why you're doing it, so I guess I'm just curious why all this effort into this cool thing that from what I can tell is just kind of a side project.
Yeah, I don't have a business. I don't want to turn this into a business, if that makes any sense. I'm doing it all for fun. I really, really enjoy making things, and I have my entire life. And being able to go out and tinker on something, or learn a new process, or build something that somebody thinks is cool, uh, I just, I, I'm obsessed. I have this need to do it. And I do spend a lot of time on it. I spend a lot of time with my family, and obviously work takes up a lot of time. But I'm always thinking of like how to do this more efficiently, or what would be a cool design, or how to take an existing idea and generate like a new idea that springboards from that. Just be having the artist mind or the maker mind. I don't really care about making money off of it. I don't really care about like having millions and millions of followers. I just really like sharing ideas, but also getting inspired by other people and having cool conversations. I'd rather do that than watch television
Yeah.
or do things like that. And this is kind of weird, but I'm also really worried about getting older. And my father like recently passed away from dementia,
Wow.
and that's also that's really, really scary.
Yeah.
So anything I can do to keep my mind going, like problem solving, figuring things out, um, it just makes me feel good. But
Yeah.
when I was working in technology beyond games, like at Apple, that was really rewarding. But at the same time, it was not very creative.
Yeah.
Uh, so having a creative outlet to come home and throw some wood together and have something physical that you've made, or a challenge that you've overcome, like in trying to make something, is makes me sleep better at night.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, oh, that was cool, and now I'm not as stressed and not was worried. Now I can get some rest, and yeah. But yeah, I'm
Right.
up really, really early in the morning. My sleep schedule is really weird. I'm working on stuff late at night. It's a little crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I totally get that. I'm curious about the community aspect of it, because sharing it with other people, you obviously could be just doing this on your own and having fun, and you don't have to bother to film everything and make videos out of it. And then that takes a lot of time too. In
Yeah.
some cases it takes as much time as actually making the thing. So why is that important?
I think just connecting with the community. Like I made a lot of really, really cool friends in the maker space. There's a maker conference for woodworking they usually have it in Chicago.
Hmm.
No, I'm sorry, Atlanta. And I've met a ton of people there that do all different kinds of things, from 3D printing to digital fabrication to CNC woodworking to more traditional type woodworking. And it's just really nice to have a group of friends that you can chat with about, hey, have you checked out this new laser, or have you checked out this new process in Fusion? So having a community like that, I think is fun. The social media, though, can be really challenging.
Yeah.
And it took me about a year and a half to kind of get used to it, because people on social media it can be very, very supportive and very cool, but there's always an element of just people wanting to really be hateful towards you for no real reason. And to get over that and to not be affected by that and not have it hurt your mental health, it takes a while.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure why people want to do that, or vent their frustrations out on other people, or just go in your comment section and tell you how much they don't like you and what you've made.
Yeah.
But but I do think the benefits outweigh that. Uh, just being able to show an idea to somebody and they say, hey, that's really cool, but maybe what if you did it differently? What if you did it more like this? That is so incredibly valuable, that feedback. And I learned a lot of that in art school, having to go bring your artwork and do a critique and have people tell you what they think about your artwork. If it's done in a very positive manner, even if they don't like it, it's constructive criticism can go a long way.
You've got enough followers now, though, that you can just kind of focus on all the positive reinforcement you're getting because your work is spectacular. You seem to have this approach where, I'm just guessing here, but maybe you're spinning a model around in 3D and you're like, I want to build this, whatever. This is some shelving unit or a storage device or something like that. Okay, now it needs to be a box. All right, so how am I going to get the fasteners in this box? I'll just make a jig. And then you just like do that in 3D and then you print the thing. And it's like, you could go to Rockler or something like that and they sell that thing, right? It's a tool that you can buy that can do that special, like hole drilling thing you need to do for however much, well, like you spend $50 on it or something like that, and you can snap the thing together and do it. But I tend to approach things the same way, where I sort of have this picture and it's like, well, I know exactly what I need for that, so I'm just going to make that. And a lot of the criticism I used to get when I would do these kinds of projects on Instructables, for example, I did a lot of content there. It was like my job at Autodesk for a while. Was why would you bother making that? You can just buy the thing. And I always said, well, then you don't get to make anything. Like you're missing the point here,
Making something is the point. It might not be the finished product, but actually going through the process of problem solving and figuring out how to make this really cool. That's where the fun is. So yeah, I can go to IKEA and I can buy a dresser, and it'll work great in my bedroom. But then building one, you miss out on that experience. So
it's encouraging to me how much this maker kind of movement has moved into schools. People have started to realize how important that stuff is and how much we've missed out on for a couple of generations at this point on, people just not knowing how to do basic stuff. My wife's an art teacher and she has this saying, materials don't lie, right? So one of the things she does is she has her kids make prints. So they have they'll draw a graphic and then they carve it out and then they do a woodblock print. And she just lets them go. And without a doubt, most of the class, the first time they do it, they do the block and look at it and it's mirrored. And they go, but you do that once, right? You're never going to make that mistake again because, again, materials don't lie. And I think that's what's going on with a lot of this. A lot of this stuff. It's like when you spend time doing these things and you make things, you do that 3D printed part, right? You download something, whatever it is. Let's say it's something practical. It's like a little tool hanger or, your Dyson vacuum. Here's a little bracket that goes on the wall, right? You put the thing on the wall, screw it in, put your Dyson vacuum on, and it breaks after the third time you put it on. And then you realize it broke because the layer lines are in the wrong direction. You should have oriented it a different way. And now all of a sudden you're starting to you're starting to really understand what's around you. And like you said, you go to IKEA and you see that dresser for $200 and you're just floored by how little it costs. And you think about what it would take to justify you making that, right? Like how much would you need to be paid to make that thing? It just makes me hopeful for the future that there's going to be a whole generation of kids, at least some substantial portion of them, that have a real understanding of what the material world really is, what it takes to make things, like what's behind manufacturing. I don't know. I think there's going to be a lot of positive stuff coming out of that.
Yeah. I just saw a TikTok clip from Neil deGrasse Tyson where he was talking about people reacting to learning trigonometry or geometry or algebra in school. And he was saying, and he's said it a lot more eloquently than I can, but basically saying that the goal isn't necessarily to absolutely become an expert. The goal is to learn it so that you open up the pathways in your brain around the logic that's involved. And it's more about the process of learning it than actually knowing it, because you've learned how to learn how to do that, it opens you up to all of these other things that you can now learn about and understand. And I think that's genius, because the wood shop people, and I have a friend named Shar. She goes by Wooden Maven, and she's a wood shop maker teacher in Atlanta, and she's teaching kids all about how to not only use the tools but the materials, the applications for different things. And you might not be a woodworker in your real life, but because you've learned that and you have had that experience, now that's going to help you learn about A, B, or C. And I think that's pretty cool.
Every kid in school should be taking home ec, shop class, whatever, mechanic shop, like learn how to do some basic stuff with a lawnmower, whatever it is. There's just there's so much there that's helpful. I mean, I don't know. It's almost like libraries kind of need to go that way too, where you think about like, why was a library, why do we have libraries in the first place? Right. Because books were really expensive, and you wanted to read a lot. You wanted to consume as much as you could.
Yeah.
So that's what the library was for. And there's a lot of libraries now that have they've got maker spaces. They've like repurposed the basement or something. And again, same thing, right? These tools are expensive. Not everybody has access to them.
Yeah.
This is a public service we have. People come here, and like now we've got these little workshops, and people can learn to use stuff. I don't know. It's just we're gonna have to start making stuff here again. We've kind of gone a little too far down the design service, either outsource or automate everything. We're always going to do that to some extent, but I don't know. I just think the way of the future is a lot more about manufacturing being closer to the end user. Something that's a lot more ubiquitous than it has been for the last 40 years.
Yeah, and you mentioned libraries with makerspaces. The fact that there is that, so it makes it so much easier to spread that knowledge, and people can have accessibility to that knowledge. That's why I like companies that either have a free version of their software, open source software, or whatever you want to call it, where it gets the people involved in it so they can learn about it. There's no barrier to entry. You can go over to get a computer at the library and learn how to do something. I love that. I think that's very, very important in our community, that we're sharing the knowledge and sharing how to all these processes and do things. And everybody that I follow on social media that does that, I just have a deep appreciation for. Because you could hold that in.
Yeah.
Be like, I learned this new process on how to bend wood. But the makers who share all that knowledge, it's awesome. It's really cool.
I don't know. There's a lot of things about social media have been negative, that we all could point to. They're very obvious, but one of these things about it that I think is just like an incredibly positive thing is these communities around making things, around new ideas that start to flourish and like really really turn into cool things.
We have a lot of the comments, hey, you should get a patent for this, for our Lego sorter designs. And I keep telling people, like, this is not a new idea at all. There's a lot of other products out there. There's a lot of other makers who have even better ideas for sorting Lego or sorting Lego through sifting trays. Sifting trays have been around for hundreds of years in agriculture. And, that's the last thing I want to do is patent this. Here, take the plans. They're free. Make a version yourself. And then I would love to see it. Like, how would you improve this? How would you make it better? How would you make it more functional so it does a better job? Taking ideas like that and patenting them and then spending your entire life trying to enforce that patent seems like the worst possible idea. Like, unless you did something like what you said, like create a new type of engine or whatever. But I would much rather have a community where you're sharing ideas and giving away plans for free and doing all that stuff than trying to think that you've hit on something unique, because we live in a postmodern society. There's not a lot of unique ideas anymore. There's different ways to approach solving a problem, but almost everything it feels like has already been invented.
Something about the work you do and the work that other creators like yourself do that I think is super positive is it gives people, especially young people, an understanding of like what is the value of, like you said, geometry or algebra, or like learning these things that are. And I remember when I was a kid, I hated math when I was a kid until I got to geometry. And then when I was in geometry and what was that, ninth or 10th grade or something like that, something clicked. I was like, oh, this is what this is for. And then I excelled in math after that. It went great from that point on. And, and the reason is now I see something practical here. If you're looking at a 3D model, same kind of thing, right? Looking at, parameters. Why would I need to know algebra? Why would I need to know some basic trig? Like what's the value of this stuff? You can start to plug it in and now you've got a real thing coming out of it. And all of a sudden it's like, of course I need to know this stuff. This is a step towards the end result over here. It's, I wonder how many like brilliant engineers and creators have fallen through the cracks just because, they've been slogging through this algebra class, not having any connection to something real and just getting bored by it.
Yeah, or it's being taught in a certain way that doesn't match their learning style. I'm dyslexic. I was a horrible student. I like math or reading or English or anything like that. I would lose interest really quickly because I couldn't understand what the teacher was talking about. And I did have some really amazing teachers that were inspiring, but I also had a lot of teachers that didn't want to be there, that didn't want to teach. I think having somebody who can adapt to how you learn and showing you why this is so cool. Like algebra is really cool. This is why. And this is how you can use it, or this is what's going to show you in the long run. I wish I knew more math. I wish I knew how to do some more programming and engineering. And I'm learning a little bit here and there, and it's really rewarding. But even with electronics, I've been dabbling with electronics and learning how to solder things to boards and doing those little kits that you find online and things like that. That's really rewarding also. But it takes somebody when you're young to really see that in you and bring it out of you and inspire you to want to keep going and do more and more with it. And fortunately, I had a lot of art teachers that did that for me.
Yeah. So your degree is in art?
Yeah, it's fine art.
Okay.
And it's kind of split between digital art and traditional painting.
Yeah. Oh, painting. Cool. Yeah, I could see that. You got a pretty good sense of color from what I can tell.
But I did a lot of like ceramics because both my parents did ceramics for a while.
Yeah.
My mom did it professionally for many years when I was growing up. A lot of sculptural type stuff. Anything that's creative. I this is might be controversial or might be totally make sense, but with AI coming and helping to like Wayne just showed me how to do a Python script in a chat GPT and I was blown away.
Yeah.
A lot of that's going to start being more and more automated. And I think we're going to need more creative people.
Absolutely.
People who know how to use AI, but also who can try to come up with some different types of ideas or approach problems differently.
Right.
We talk a lot about problem solving. AI is going to help with that. Having a lot of people who can be creative and go into the workplace and brainstorm with people and trying to figure out how to approach building different types of products and using all these tools, I think is going to be really valuable.
It's really exciting. I know a lot of people look at it and it can be a little bit scary because, oh, maybe we don't need software engineers anymore. The answer, of course, is that's definitely not true. You still need software engineers because, for the same reason you still need structural engineers. You need a person to sign off on this and, the buck stops with him or her, right? Like you can't just have, oh, the machine did it and we just trust it. That person's always got to be there.
Yeah, I totally agree. You're going to need people who are going to sit there and either talk to the AI or type into the AI and guide it towards the result that you're looking for. Because right now, and take the writer's strike in Hollywood. Let's say these big studios were like, hey, we need a lot of stories. We're going to have AI write a lot of the stories. You're going to get a lot of similar stories.
Yep.
You're going to get a lot of mediocre stories. The real stories that people are going to latch onto and care about are the ones that come from personal experience, that actually come from a real writer who knows the emotional beats of that story and what's actually going to get people engaged in that. I have a hard time thinking that AI is ever going to be able to replicate that, the human experience in general.
Yeah, it's not that much different from, CNC manufacturing versus manual manufacturing when you think about it. With manual manufacturing, I mean, you can make the same stuff. You can make just about everything you can with a CNC machine or CNC router. The difference is you spend a lot more time planning, a lot more time making. There's more mistakes along the way. It's just way more expensive and time consuming. Whereas now, we've got products like Fusion and whatever you're using for CNC, that's guiding you through that process, doing all the heavy lifting. You tell it what you want, it's going to fill in the gaps. You tweak it from there. You still get your creation at the end of it, but it did a lot of the busy work for you, right? The grunt
Yeah.
work that's not really worth your time.
It's just a different type of tool.
Yeah.
It's not magic. There's been people who have come into our comments section and been like, "Hey, this isn't real woodworking,"
Yeah.
because they're more used to using traditional tools.
It's like,
I
okay.
have, I have such admiration and respect for people who understand how to do woodworking with more traditional tools. But I'm sure that anytime anything's been invented in that process, whether it's been a table saw or a track saw, there's been a group of people who are like, that's not really, you shouldn't be using that because that's not good. Or that's not really what woodworking is. But I think there's space for all different kinds. Like if you really, really like the process of using a plane or using just hammers and nails, or even building your own nails, like through old blacksmithing methods, I think it has value. But there's also value in automating things and not focusing on this part of the process, but focusing more on this part of the process. I love focusing more on the design of things rather than the implementation on things. But people who love the implementation, that's valuable too.
Did you ever read The Diamond Age by Neil Stephenson?
I have. I
Yeah.
have. Yeah.
Yeah. It makes me think of there's the Vickies, right? The Victorians. So if the people listening, if you're not familiar, you got to check it out. Diamond Age by Neil Stephenson. It's actually a sequel to Snow Crash, which is maybe a little bit more well known. It's kind of an older novel, but the basic premise is that distant future, um, post scarcity. There's this thing called the feed where basically you can just 3D print whatever you want. There's these matter compilers. You push a button and it's food or a mattress or a toy or like a weapon, whatever. Like everything around you is basically free. So it's
Yeah,
this whole
you have a cable coming into your house that feeds elements or atoms,
yeah.
and you get charged. It's like cable television, but you're getting charged by the materials that are coming into your home that are making.
Yeah.
Sorry,
And
didn't mean to interrupt.
anything can be made, right? And in this scenario, you're sort of there really aren't governments anymore. They're more like franchises. So there's like you can be part of they call them files. So there's this one file that's the Victorians, and they wear top hats and like the handmade clothes and like everything. There are no handmade clothes elsewhere. Nobody has that. It's just not. It doesn't even occur to people that you would want to do that. But this is like this group of people. It's like a whole society, a civilization. You could think of it like that. There's generations of people here that value that stuff. So there are these other like people that are kind of on the outside, and they hand make stuff for these people that are into that, right? And it's like I just thought that was such a cool idea where even in this future world where it's like anything you can imagine just can happen anywhere all the time. You can have like, you know, robotic centaurs running around and like just any kind of fantasy you can imagine is at your fingertips. The value of like, of human work is still there and people still value it, and it's actually really expensive compared to this, the stuff that you can just grab out of the machine in your kitchen.
One of the chapters in that book that really I was really drawn to was one of the really wealthy people go out into the ocean and they're going to have a birthday party, and they hit a button and this island on a molecular level gets created in the middle of the ocean where there's all these cool animals, and they have an amazing birthday party, and it was all created within an hour for them. And then when they're done, they fly away, and the whole thing goes back into the ocean and disappears. And I don't know why I think that's so cool, but to be
Yeah.
able to have that much control over a design and implementation of that design, I can't wait till video games are like that, where you can talk to an AI and say, "Hey, I want to make a version of Minecraft, but I want it to be more like this, and I want there to be, more things like this, and then I want to invite all my friends to come and play within that world, and get their feedback or have experiences with them.
The stuff we're doing in Fusion with AI, I don't know if you've seen much of it, but there's some really interesting things coming through there, and I think it's going to be a great example of like um, how this can really help us uh, get over these really time consuming, lots of time, not much value coming out issues with stuff like 3D modeling and making. So automated drawings, I don't know if you've ever tried that.
Yeah, I was just about to say that I have been
Yeah.
experimenting that recently because I don't enjoy doing that. And if I can automate that through AI and have it go out, because a lot of people are asking for it, they want it. I don't have a lot of time to do it and bring out all the things. And yeah, if you folks can solve that problem, it would be fantastic.
We're working on it, man. We're trying. I mean, I think of like my days as an architect and the work I did when I was an exhibit designer and that kind of thing. Doing a drawing is just it's so tedious, man. It takes so much time and like the all the little things you have to do. You spend so much time just putting the dimensions in a spot where you can read the drawing and redoing that part. And like you could just I'm glad we went that way when we started doing the AI stuff. It's like let's solve this problem because this is not fun for anybody. Um, how can we do this where we just say, give me a drawing of this, make it readable, keep the dimensions out of the way, use these parameters. The text is so and so tall and so on. It's low hanging fruit for that, but there's going to come a point before long where there's a lot more stuff that's automated, and you can just come in and say, think of the way generative design works, for example. I've got this bolt hole over here, got this kind of bolt. I've got this force going this way. It's pinned in this way. Gravity's down there. Give me some solutions for this. Imagine that, but like kind of spread out where we're not just talking about a bracket here, a mechanical connection, or now we've got this a fluid flow thing we can do. There's going to be a lot more things like that where we're sort of giving you options and quick solutions to things that you can kind of take and run with that are solving little basic problems for you.
Yeah, if somebody downloaded one of our plans and they were a woodworker and they had a drill and a table saw, if they could talk to Fusion and say, "Hey, spit out paper plans for me, and here's the tools that I have and the materials I'm going to use," and it all just it wouldn't have to be perfect, but if it was 90% there and it would get them going, that would be amazing. Because then anybody who works differently or has a different set of tools can still get access to the ideas. They just don't, you don't have to put in the effort of having to export every format or design the plans to support every material type. It would be really nice.
That's a great example there because there are some things from table saw and drill press, right? There for sure straight cuts. You can do that. You can do so that means rectangular parts. Drill tells me you've got holes you can have in a range from here to here. You could even put those parameters in. This is my drill index. I can go from 16th to half inch or whatever it is. Yeah, and then you're sort of going from there. Yeah, that's a really kind of wonder if we're working on that now. Actually, let me check with the guys and I'll get back to you.
Even hardware that you're applying to it.
Yeah.
We recently did the Bamboo Lab printer stand, but we're using hardware from McMaster's. If you wanted to go buy the drawer slides from Home Depot, then being able to tell Fusion, like, these are my drawer slides, I'm not using those, and then all the holes just magically change and the tolerances change so that you can use that particular piece of hardware.
Yeah, I'd do it. I mean, I've got, I'd rather buy stuff from I'd rather buy the cheap stuff if I don't need the good stuff. So yeah, Pete, the fun question we like to ask is the zombie apocalypse question. So the scenario is it's a zombie apocalypse. Civilization has collapsed. You got to rebuild your shop and you can have access to anything you want, but you're putting yourself at great personal risk to go get it. So what do you get first?
I would go get a 6 foot long pinched end crowbar. a steel crowbar. But it depends. If it's slow walking zombies, definitely the 6-foot long crowbar. But if they're fast, viral zombies, rage zombies, I would go with duct tape, because you're going to need a lot of padding and a lot of armor to prevent them from biting you, because the bites are really bad. Yeah.
Well, thanks so much, man. This has been super cool.
I really appreciate your folks' time. It's been a joy working with you on the keypad and other projects. And I love your software. Thanks so much for the support and reaching out and just chatting with me. It's been really cool.
Well, man, thanks so much for using our stuff and talking about it so much. For people that aren't familiar, Pete did a version of our Autodesk Fusion factory experience keypad that's coming up for Autodesk University. We're going to have this factory experience thing we do there frequently. We'll put a link in the description here for that. You can kind of see what we're working on there. But yeah, it's super cool. It's something I've been wanting to do for a long time. Get some creators together to work on that project. Come up with your own take on it. So yeah, I really appreciate it, man. Thanks so much for coming. Hey everyone, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay up to date with all things Shop Talk. If you're ready to try Fusion for yourself, find the link in our description.